Hi, and welcome to Grails to Astonish. With the new Fantastic Four movie hitting theaters, I wanted to do a video digging into the key books that collectors go after. I've broken them down by market cap once again, and we're going to look at the top 10 most valuable Fantastic Four grails. But first, I want to talk about the movie, which I did go out and see. I'm not going to spoil the story, but I'll give you my general thoughts, so go ahead and skip to the next chapter if you haven't seen it yet and don't want your viewing tainted. All clear? So I'll get this out of the way first. It is, of course, the best Fantastic Four movie, but that was never a high bar for it to clear. Setting the movie in an alternate Tomorrowland-infused early 1960s was absolutely the right choice, as the characters are deeply rooted in the time period when they were created. I think they got Ben Grimm exactly right, and he was probably the trickiest character to deal with, both visually and in terms of performance. He is the heart of the team, rough on the outside, tender on the inside. I enjoyed every moment with him. The other characters felt quite a bit different from their original Kirby Lee depictions for reasons that are entirely understandable. Reed Richards has always been kind of a jerk. He was pompous and dismissive, usually focused on problems he felt were more important than the people around him. Pedro Pascal's Reed has that quality, but it's clearly in conflict with his underlying humanity. Johnny Storm was a different kind of jerk, impulsive and arrogant. This Johnny is toned way down on that front, is more thoughtful and more a part of the team. Sue is probably the most radical departure, as her early depictions were so passive and compliant she barely seemed to be there and was constantly sidelined out of their early adventures in one way or another. This Sue is closer to John Byrne's 80s overhaul of the character, both in power set and personality. All of those changes were pretty necessary to make the movie work in 2025. They made the characters more likable, and they got along with a lot less friction than in the early comics. And that actually ties into what disappointed me most about the movie. My favorite moments in the Avengers films are the ones where they slow down and just spend time together. The cocktail party in Age of Ultron, planning the time heist in Endgame. I think my favorite scene in any MCU film might be when Scott Lang's taco contents get blown away by the Guardian's ship landing and Bruce offers up his own. It's a sweet, funny moment that isn't in a hurry to get anywhere, and you just get to spend time with all these different characters who are suddenly thrown together and bouncing off each other. I'll also never get over Rhodey calling Scott regular-sized man, nor can I explain why it feels like such an oddly sick burn. The Fantastic Four is all about family, and like most families, they pick at each other and drive one another crazy. While there are attempts at those sorts of moments, I felt like both the Avengers and Guardians movies did that stuff better. I never really felt like I wanted to hang out with the Fantastic Four. I hope I get there after another movie or two. I won't get into the Galactus and Silver Surfer stuff other than to say I enjoyed it. They made a lot of big changes, but hit the notes that really mattered. I got to see him stomping through Manhattan, so I was happy. Alright, let's get back to the actual comics. Now, as a quick refresher, when I talk about market cap, what I'm referring to is the total current fair market value of every Universal CGC graded copy of a book at every grade. So if the CGC census lists 10 copies of a book at 9.0, and the current 9.0 value is $5,000, then the total value of that grade is $50,000. Add all the grades up, and we've got the market cap. And as I've done in the past, I'm going to go down this list in descending order because the top of the list is pretty obvious, and it gets more interesting as we make our way down. So what's the most valuable issue of Fantastic Four? Anyone want to take a guess? Fantastic Four #1 isn't just the beginning of the series, it's the beginning of the entire Marvel Universe. Yeah, there were the timely books with Captain America, Submariner, and the Human Torch, but FF1 was really a whole new thing. The current market cap for FF1 is $47 million, which is a steep drop from the last time I talked about it a few months ago, but still massive, and I'll be surprised if it continues to fall too much further. In any case, the current value of a mid-grade 5.0 is $21,000, and it's never not going to be the most valuable FF book. #2 on this list might come as a surprise to some collectors, but probably not to dealers or anyone who works at the auction sites, because they know how many copies of Fantastic Four 48 are floating around out there. It's the single most populous CGC graded Silver Age book with over 9,000 copies in existence. And because of a warehouse find in the 2000s, a large portion of those books are in excellent condition. Over 15% of the copies are in high grade at 8.0 or above. Compare that to issue 1, where only 3% of copies are 8.0 or above, and the math starts to make sense. The market cap for FF48 is a little over $20 million. More than half of that value is from those high-grade copies. There are currently 45 9.8s of this book, worth about $60,000 each. A mid-grade 5.0 is far cheaper at $1,050, but that's still nothing to sneeze at compared to most issues in the series. The reason this book is so valuable, of course, is because it introduces both Galactus and the Silver Surfer, and is the start of one of the most legendary stories in the history of comics. It is also, if we take a step back, a deeply weird story in which a giant spaceman in a purple pope hat and miniskirt decides he's going to eat the whole planet. This is arguably where Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's wildly prolific creative collaboration hit its absolute zenith. Number 3 on this list is the introduction of the other classic Fantastic Four supervillain, Doctor Doom in Fantastic Four number 5. I've talked about this book a lot in other videos, so I'm not going to dwell on it too long. The market cap is $19 million, and I think it's one of the best comic investments right now. Even with less than a quarter of the number of copies in circulation, it has a good chance of overtaking issue 48 for that number 2 spot. A mid-grade 5.0 like this one is currently going for about $7,250. The next book on the list is another major first appearance. In fact, you could argue it's not so much a Fantastic Four key as it is a Black Panther key. I'm talking about issue 52. This book has been on a roller coaster ride since word broke of Black Panther's inclusion in 2016's Captain America: Civil War. The book soared in 2018 when the Black Panther movie became a massive cultural moment that transcended its place in the MCU. And then there was Chadwick Boseman's tragic death during the pandemic, followed by a grief-infused sequel in 2022 that got a mixed response. There's a new animated Wakanda series I haven't watched yet, but excitement about the character seems to have cooled off in recent years. The market cap for Black Panther's first appearance is currently down to $7.6 million, with a large population of 7,000 copies that's only topped on this list by issue 48. These days, you can get a 5.0 copy for only $525, which is way down from its peak of $1,800 in 2021. The book is at a third to a fourth of its former value in most grades, but that still keeps it in the number 4 spot, and I doubt it'll slip much further. The number 5 book on this list is Fantastic Four 49. This is the second issue in the original Galactus saga, paying off the introduction teased in issue 48. I've always been a little puzzled about how the market treats FF48 and 49 in contrast to how it treats Hulk 180 and 181. In both instances, the major new characters that debuted appeared only on the last page of the first book, then featured on the cover of the second. But the market has settled on Hulk 181 being the first appearance of Wolverine, while values indicate FF48 is the more significant Galactus book. Of course, this stuff is endlessly debated by comic nerds, but let's just look at the numbers. Issue 49's market cap is $6.9 million, which is a fraction of FF48's $20 million. Part of the difference is because of that high-grade warehouse find on 48, which gives 49 a much smaller population that's skewed to lower-grade copies. But look at the values at 5.0. Issue 49 currently sells at $600, while 48s are selling at over $1,000 with far more copies in the population. Compare that to Hulk 180's 5.0 at $375 and 181's at $2,300. To be honest, I don't think there's anything irrational here, and it all makes sense from the perspective of what you'd want to hang on the wall. Hulk 180 makes no mention of Wolverine on the cover. Fantastic Four 48 doesn't show him, but his name is there, and his presence is felt by the look of overwhelming dread in everyone's eyes, which conveys the magnitude of what Galactus represents much better than 49's actual depiction. Galactus is H.P. Lovecraft filtered through the brain of Jack Kirby, an unknowable, unstoppable, godlike cosmic being who is beyond good or evil. You get that from the cover of 48, and no matter what Kirby put on 49, it was going to be a little bit of a letdown. I love the design of Galactus, but what's most interesting about him is the concept he represents. Anyway, long story short, I think 49 is pretty cool, but not as cool as 48, and it's in the right place on this list. For the 6th book, we go back to issue 4. While 2nd and 3rd issues usually hold more value, issue 4 rises above them because it reintroduces the Submariner from the Golden Age. With a small population of 1,700 copies, the market cap is $4.75 million. Issue 2 is almost in a dead heat with 4, at a market cap of $4.7 million. This issue introduces the Skrulls, who aren't quite as significant as Namor, but have gone on to play an important role in the Marvel Universe, as well as the MCU, even if Secret Invasion was god-awful. At number 8 on this list, we have issue 12, the first Marvel crossover in which the Fantastic Four battles the Hulk. I've talked about this issue a lot in other videos. I love this one and consider it a big turnaround moment for the Hulk after his series was canceled and they finally figured out how to use him. With 1,900 copies, the market cap for this book is $4.1 million. Number 9 on this list is one of my all-time favorite comic covers, and a book I've been trying to win at auction for years. It's easy to forget that for the first 2 issues, the Fantastic Four just walked around in their regular everyday clothes, which wasn't very fantastic at all. It wasn't until issue 3 that they got their matching costumes, which they showed off in this great image, along with the first iteration of the Fantasticar, which was also still pretty low on the Fantastic scale and needed some more work. There are only 1,400 Universal graded copies of this issue, giving it a market cap of $3.9 million. A 5.0 sells for $2,100, putting it on par with issue 4, but slightly more scarce. Rounding out the list, we have the end of the 3-issue Galactus saga, issue 50. This one features the breakout character of Silver Surfer, but oddly puts him over an extremely non-cosmic brown background. Not a great choice, and this issue would probably be in way more demand if they'd put some stars behind him like they did later on in Silver Surfer number 1. There are 4,400 graded copies of this book, and probably way more raw ones floating around that will be added to the population if prices rise. The market cap for this book is $2.9 million, with a 5.0 selling for $290, way lower than all the other books in the top 10. Here's the full top 10 list with their current mid-grade values listed beside them. And here's that same list rearranged by population count. You can see the big gap between the books that came out in the first year of the series and the later issues that debuted the Black Panther, Silver Surfer, and Galactus. Lastly, I'll add in the market cap values, so you can see how scarcity doesn't always correlate with demand. I'll quickly mention a few books that didn't quite make the cut. Issue 13 is the first appearance of The Watcher, which I think should be a bigger deal, but most collectors don't agree. The market cap for this one is only $1.5 million. Issue 25 is The Thing's rematch with the Hulk. It's a great cover, but it can't compete with their first encounter in issue 12. This one has a total market cap of only $1.4 million. Also at $1.4 million is issue 45, the debut of the Inhumans. Marvel has been trying to make the Inhumans happen for decades, but no one really cares that much. And lastly, there's annual number 2, which includes the origin of Doctor Doom. I consider this one a major Doom key that should go up in value as Doom enters the MCU, but once again, no one else seems to agree. The market cap for this one is just $1 million, giving it little chance of ever breaking into the top 10. So there you have it. These are the top books for any Fantastic Four collector to go after. Prices will go up and down, but I think the order of this list is likely pretty solid, with the only potential movement being Doom's first appearance overtaking Galactus in value as Avengers Doomsday gets closer. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.